How would we do such an improvement? Well, here is an approach where we create a spreadsheet where on top we have the actuals that we just derived. They may sound familiar, 50 to 124 and 38. The one that's biggest problem, as we saw, was the middle one, the average collection period. So we're going to set some new targets here. So these are the actuals, these are our targets. So we're going to go into Excel now and show how do we take these new targets to estimate the value of the CC improvement plan. Here is that same display in the Excel spreadsheet. The top portion are the conditions that we're simulating, where we're at now, what we hope to achieve, and overall we see the CCC was 136. That's quite a few days. And then we look at the new target, drops all the way to 25, which is a massive improvement of 111 days. Let's see what happens if we're able to accomplish those new targets. Notably, this particular item is very large in the receivables area, but let's do all of them together. First, we'll look at sales. We'll assume no change because we're going to look at just balance sheet management, not just improving our profitability. Cost of goods sold, again, we're not changing our profitability. We're focusing on our balance sheet items. So here's where the action is. Inventory. If the old was 17, the new will be 11.7. We derived that by this formula here, is the inventory conversion period times COGS divided by 365. So here it is. Here's the application of that formula. We take the inventory conversion period is 35, and to that we multiply by COGS divided by 365, and we end up with 11.7, which is quite a bit better than having 17. Now note that we're having the same sales, the same cost of goods sold, and from better management of inventory, we're going to reduce from 17 million to 11 million. So we're saving working capital. We do the same for receivables, and we have the new target of 40. And if we're able to accomplish the 40, then the receivables level would be the average collection of 40 times the sales divided by 365. And that's this calculation here. It equals 40 times 50 divided by 365, and we end with 16. And there is a massive change, right? Because we used to have 51 million tied up in receivables, and with this change, we would be able to accomplish 16 million. The final one is payables. We're at target of 50, so we calculate the new level of accounts payable by saying the target is 50 times COGS divided by 365, and the answer is 16.71. When we now compute the net operating working capital, we can see the magnitude of the improvement. In the first case, we were at 55, which are the receivables and the inventory minus the payables. And then in the case of the new target, we have the revised targets of 17, 16, and 16. So the net result is 11.42 in net operating working capital. That's an improvement of approximately $44 million. Now, the interest that we are charged, let's say, is 10%. And if we have assets of 55 million and to borrow money to fund those is 10%, then it would be $55 million times 10%, or 5.5. Now, if we're able to drop that to 11.42, 10% of 11.42 is 1.14 million. So we have a big change and improvement in the inventory cost of financing the working capital. Here's a summary of what we have. The reduction of working capital is 43 million. That's the difference between the 55 and the 11. And then the savings and interest expense is the difference between the 5.50 and the 114. So we'll save $4 million in working capital. Now, nothing fancy here. We didn't sell more products. We didn't manage our costs to have higher net income. But by managing our working capital items more effectively, we reduce the burden of those assets and the financing of those assets, saving us in interest expense of $4.3 million. Right? So that's the point here, is that these items in working capital mean money, and being able to manage them better generates more profit and also allows you to have a more rational approach to running your balance sheet, and you'll see all those performance metrics improve. Inventory management. Next, we're going to go into each of the three and say, okay, we pulled a number out of the air and put it in Excel. how would you do things to improve inventory management? So what is inventory? For manufacturers, it has many stages, from raw material to work in process inside the factory to finished goods inside the warehouse. And we will look at how to manage all three of those stages of inventory. If you're a merchandiser, like a retailer, you need merchandise inventories bought ready for sale. So in some ways, it's a simpler analysis because we're looking at the finished goods that were manufactured by other people and we're selling them to our customers. Inventory requires working capital. So what we want to do is be rational in the stages, such as purchasing. So can we purchase in an effective means to get good pricing and have efficient ways of purchasing and contracting? Next is we're looking at high levels of inventory that, in addition to just being tying up our money, it takes storage. We have to ensure what we have in inventory. Property taxes may be assessed on what we have in our inventory. And spoilage and obsolescence risks are higher because we have more inventory. If you have fewer items, there's a lesser chance that you'll be hurt by obsolescence. And manufacturing techniques themselves. Can we use more advanced techniques such as demand pull so that we're manufacturing things that we know will sell quickly, or just in time, that we have raw materials and intermediate manufactured items ready to go so that the process through the factory runs smoothly without a lot of buffer inventory, either in the raw material storage area or accumulating in little stacks of intermediate products inside the factory. The best looking flow is very lean amount of inventory that's in raw materials, supplies, and also throughout the manufacturing process. So the raw materials gets converted to final product in a very smooth way. And we have systems that can work with precise order processing. And these relate to how do we estimate demand in order to estimate production needs? How do we look at time constraints and shortage so that we will then manufacture efficiently without putting our company at risk? So again, let's take an exercise on what would happen if we're able to make some improvements in inventory management. Here's an Excel spreadsheet where we have the current turnover ratio, inventory of $40, cost of goods sold are $120. So the turnover is 3. But what would happen if we could go from 3 to 4? And we'll go into Excel to show the formulas. All right, the bottom portion simulates the results if we're able to make that improvement. So inventory equals COGS divided by inventory turnover. And so new inventory would be 30, which represents the COGS, which is 120 right there, divided by the inventory turnover we're targeting, which is 4. So we would have 30 as our new number. Our old number was here, 40 million, and therefore we'll save $10 million in reduced inventory. It also reduces the load or drag, if you will, on free cash flows. Remember that we take NOPAT, and from that we subtract the increase in our operating assets. If we could somehow decrease our inventory, the free cash flow will have a higher number because there's less subtracted from NOPAT. So again, NOPAT minus the change in assets. If the change of assets is lessened because of good management, therefore, and free cash flow rises.